Hey you guys, Funky Like Feathers here. So tonight it is week 3 of Preptober. We've got a lot of fun stuff we're going to be working on tonight. This past weekend, we were talking with Maria Lopez. She was leading a workshop specifically on developmental scene cards. So that's some of the stuff we're going to be working on today. As a reminder, the materials that I'm working with on these live streams on Wednesdays, you can get all of these printable downloads from my Patreon for free. So you can print out as many as you need. So again, tonight we're going to be talking about scene cards over on Patreon. It's just patreon.com/funkylikefeathers, and you can get the downloads. They are right there. You get full access. You don't have to pay for it or anything like that. There are 2 different versions of the scene card that we're going to be talking about tonight. And Maria did a really amazing job like breaking down how these function and how to utilize them. Right. So I have to say that was absolutely amazing. I was taking notes like a crazy person, trying to make sure that I fully understood how to use these as well, because I have used scene cards in the past and they're so helpful when you're trying to understand what needs to happen in your story and why it needs to happen in your story, right? There's a lot of that kind of information that doesn't always get fully processed in a story. And it's important that your reader knows that there's a purpose for those scenes instead of just tossing stuff at them. So with the 2 different versions of these scene cards, they break down information differently. So as always, it's good to have something that makes sense in your head. Okay, if it doesn't make sense in your head, you're not going to use it. It's not going to function properly, and your story may fall flat because you didn't know how to use that resource, right? So I've got stuff stacked up over here. I have the scene cards that I took notes on. I have blank scene cards. So in case you would like to see what these scene cards look like. So this is the scene card that is based on the story arc. So kind of beat sheet style, right? If you have ever read or heard of Save the Cat Writes a Novel, this scene card might make more sense in your head if that's the kind of process that you're used to. Right. So at the beginning, she's got a lot of information here that talks about the act, the beat, what scene it is, what's the setting, stuff like that. Hello, Rubina. Say hi to Lola for me. And we get kind of some of this background information that we need for each scene. Now, it's important that we kind of mention that and keep track of that information as we go from scene to scene. Now, last week we talked about kind of the larger picture as far as the plot, right? So we broke down larger bullet points in the story. And it's really intriguing too, because I was even talking to Maria about this earlier today, about the fact that when I was breaking down my story and kind of going from what I considered beat to beat, right? Like main idea to main idea, I was actually breaking it down smaller than what the beats were, right? And suddenly I was like, oh no, that's actually part of like the previous beat. I'm not there yet, but I was like listing out all these other things that needed to happen. Those little small things that were supposed to be happening are actually scenes. They're not the primary beats. So that, and I've been doing Nano, this is my 5th year, and I'm still learning things and going, oh yeah, okay, no, I got it. So no matter what, if you think, oh, you just got into this and, you're just learning so much, you are not alone. Okay. I actually saw this really cool little description of this thing. And like, let me just read to you what it says. It says, me talking a writer down from imposter syndrome. How long have you been writing? Like 5 years. And how old are you? I'm just not going to answer that question. Okay. Wrinkle crate. They answer the question. Okay, so you're a level age here, human, and a level 5 writer. How good were you as a level 5 human? See, so like if you compare those kinds of skills, like if you've only been trying to work on your writing skills for a certain number of years, like keep that in mind. Just because you wrote something like, little tiny things for school, it's not the same as what you're trying to like bite off and chew for NaNoWriMo. Okay, so like give yourself some grace here, people. Give yourself some grace, because Nano's a big project. All right. So as we go through this, you learn something new all the time. And this is part of it. The ideas that you have, this is also part of the reason last week when we discussed about brain dumping and how important it was just to get some of those ideas out of your head so you can also start to organize the big ideas versus the smaller ideas, right? And like I said, I even was sitting there going, oh yeah, and then this and this and this. And I was like, that's a scene, not a beat. Okay. Because it was a smaller thing that needed to happen, not a big one. And plus, if everybody used the Save the Cat beat sheet, there'd be the same number of chapters in every single book if you had every beat be a chapter. Not cool. Okay. And now I have actually come into contact with a book that like legitimately followed the beats and every beat was a chapter. And as I was reading it, I was like, dude, this is the Save the Cat beat sheet and you just had a chapter first. It was so obvious. So like, please, no matter what kind of format you try to organize your story in, please realize that scenes are different than main sections of a story. Like in the hero's journey, every main step, that's not a chapter. Okay, like you can have multiple chapters for each of those little sections of the pie, right? For the hero's journey. If you need a printout of the hero's journey, again, go to Patreon. Okay? It's funky like feathers over on Patreon. All those things are free to print. Go. Shoot. Check it out, man. It's very important to realize the differences between scenes, chapters, beats. All this stuff is very, very different. And, I like to kind of set up like chapter ideas as I'm going through and setting up like my Scrivener document and stuff. However, if you just want to make a list of your scenes, that's cool too. One of the things I like on Scrivener, and I know not everybody is cool with Scrivener. I feel you. But one of the things that I like is the index card view. So it allows you to kind of like zoom out of the story and it puts all of your main chunks of information like in order, right? So whatever order you have documents in Scrivener, it actually sets them up as index cards on a cork board. And so it's kind of nice to be able to see it in that view and decide if you want to move it around. You can also put a summary specifically in that so you can decide what you want on that, metaphorical index card, that digital index card, and move it around as well just to kind of summarize stuff for yourself. So that's super helpful too. If you are old school and you want to write it on a literal index card, I am not holding you back. Okay. But again, on these scene cards, that top section that we have is essentially your index card of general information that's going into this scene. It's like that Polaroid view of what's going into this scene, right? So again, you've got your act 1, 2, or 3, the beat, if you want to list out what beat you're currently on. This one is the scene. So if you want to put like a quick bullet point for what this scene is supposed to cover, that's where you can put it. And then the setting, right? This is setting. So to know what the setting is, because again, your character should be moving around in the story, right? When we talked about hero's journey and the plot embryo, it's very clear that we've got an ordinary world and a world of chaos. So no matter what, your character should be moving around from some place to some other place, right? So the setting is going to change at some point. You've also got the ambiance and mood, right? I really like that section because to me, that's a really big part of a scene. And this is also where I bring up that, 57 senses kind of thing, because, and we touched on this last time as well, it's that sensory information that really brings your reader into the scene, right? So that sensory information is where we're going to get smells, background sounds. We're going to get, a little texture information. We're going to set the mood for things. So if there's, just a feeling of tension in the air, we need to know that. Has your character had a good day or a bad day? Like, or what mood are they in, kind of thing. Hey, Bomber, welcome in. So after that ambiance and mood, we're going to move on to characters. And this also is important because we need to keep track of the fact that we have multiple characters in the scene. It keeps that scene more dynamic by having more than one character. Also because you need to know where your characters have run off to, right? Now, if you have ever seen J.K. Rowling's planning behind Harry Potter, it's really interesting to see. It's just a giant chart, okay? But she's got like all of her characters on one side and kind of timestamps at the top. And so she's keeping track of where all of these characters are as the story progresses. Okay. Now it's literally on, I think, like loose leaf paper. If you guys want me to post some of these things over on Patreon, I can do that too, because I posted them last year. If you want to scroll like Wheel of Fortune on that thing, you can, because I posted it last year, but I'll be posting more stuff this year. So don't worry. But you could probably just do a Google search for J.K. Rowling's planning for Harry Potter, and you'll probably see that same chart pop up. It's very cool to see, just to know kind of the background, what happens behind the scenes as different writers are making their stories, right? So again, this top section is kind of your Polaroid, your snapshot, your index card of quick view of where you are in the story as you're working on this scene. Okay, now that same information is also on the top of this scene card. Now, this scene card is based on the information that's given in a book called Story Genius. Now, I have not actually read Story Genius, and this is another book that explains like how to write story, right? However, Abby Emmons, again, we've talked about her before, right? She's amazing. Abby Emmons on YouTube, she specifically created her own scene card based on what she had read from Story Genius. I'm telling you, this is like the most random trickle down effect ever. Abby Emmons read Story Genius. I saw Abby Emmons's video. Maria and I talked about that scene card. We came up with another scene card, and then Maria even perfected it even more this year by adding more stuff to it. And that's what brings us to this scene card. Okay, like the evolution had to happen. It's more complex than Pokemon that happened. All right. Now, again, let's look them side by side. See, they're going to have a different setup. So again, it's whichever one makes sense in your head. Okay. This past weekend at the workshop, a lot of people said that this format made sense more in their head. And for me, this one made more sense in my head. We're going to talk about it. Okay. Because how do you know which one's going to work? You got to try them. All right. And we're going to talk about where this stuff goes, like how to utilize, like how to fill it in so that it makes sense in your head. Okay. Do I print out a ton of scene cards before I write story? Yes. Yes, I do. I print out a bunch. Now, even like I said, with character profiles, I print out at least 10 of them and run around with those so that I can try to organize my thoughts, right? It's the same thing with your scene cards. You're going to want to print out multiple so that you can try different things on them. If you want to try both of the different formats so that you can try to decide which one you like more, that's important too. So just like we said, this was that plot embryo, and you can see the little sections for each one. Those sections correlate to different scenes. So when you set up a scene card that is this version for the story arc version, and you can see like it's slightly different. It changes all the time. We make it better and better every year, you guys. This way, we're going to break down the scene a little bit more. So when we get into this scene, again, it starts with characters, right? Then we go to setup. Okay, so the setup, now when we talked about the beat sheet, setup is one of the first things too. It's, like that opening image, and then you set up. So this one is where we're going to give kind of an introduction to the scene. We're going to introduce what is happening here, right? Then the catalyst. Now, a lot of us really, I don't know if it's just writers in general, but we use the word catalyst for some reason, like comfortably, which is funny. But that catalyst is that cause for the change, or the change itself, or a question that is presented. And this is really where we're like getting into like, dun, 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 like why does this scene matter, right? Like what is making this become a scene kind of thing. Then we have a call to action. That's going to be kind of your active step that your character's making, or this decision that they're making because of the catalyst, right? Now I'm just going over general stuff, and then I'm going to give you an example of one of my scenes, okay? So that you can kind of see how I literally put stuff on there. All right. Then we have that hanging in the balance is next, okay? This is going to be your make it or break it kind of thing happening, or the mental state or the stakes that your character's having to deal with. Okay, so this is, I'm over here at hanging in the balance. That's right there. Okay, next up is your high or low point. Okay, so this is going to be a major situation for your character, right? And this is where you're going to create that tension that you want, because you need your reader turning the page, right? This is how you're going to make sure that they continue turning that page. You're really going to build up that tension. Okay, this is where we just really mess with the character or the plot, right? So that's what you want. Now, then we get to that resolution. That's that second to last section. And that is the active step your character takes to move into the next scene. Whatever it is, it's going to make the next scene kind of roll through. That's where that's going to go. Now, at the very bottom, she does have a section for notes, okay? That notes section does come in handy every now and then. Let me tell you, okay? Because if there's random bits of information that you just need to make sure to remind yourself about, that's where you're going to put it, okay? Especially if you're coming back and rereading that scene card and you're like, oh, this is something else I wanted to put there. That's where you put it. Like, that's where you put it. Okay. If you need to like randomly mention your character's favorite color, or if you need to make sure that they're wearing a certain thing, or, you know, they have an instrument with them. I don't care. I don't care. That's where it goes though. Okay. Easy peasy. Goes right there. And then that way you have all of your information for that scene. Okay. Now, some of the things that Maria also brought up this past weekend, which was amazing. She specifically broke down what a scene was. And this was, it's simple, it's basic, but OM goodness, it's important. Okay. What is a scene? It seems easy. It, like, you can't just say it's where stuff happens in a book, because the whole book is where stuff happens, right? You can't just say it's where something happens to the character, because sometimes nothing's happening to the character. You're just sitting with them. So she kind of defined a scene as a building block of a story. And I love that definition. Okay, simple, basic, to the point, succinct, the building block of a story, right? Now, this also literally makes sense, because when you put together your codex, you put together all of these scene cards and it literally stacks up, and that's your story. You know how, like, when we say, if you want to know where your money went, you take all the receipts out of your bag and you put them together and you have a little book about where your money went. That's your scene card. Each of those receipts is your scene card, and it breaks down what happened, because you have all the information on that receipt, right? You know where you were, that's your setting. You know what time you were there, that's on the receipt. Usually you know who you were dealing with, so your characters, you know you were involved, and so was that waiter or waitress, or the, you know, person at the bank, or the, you know, the cashier you were dealing with. You've got your characters on there. You know what things you were buying, so you can kind of tell what was happening. Like, literally, your scene cards are your receipts. You stack them up and it tells you what you need to write in the story. So simple, right? Like, it's that, I know, right, Bomber? Like, psh, like, mind blown. So simple. But yes, your scene cards are your receipts for your scenes. That's it. That's there you go. All right, we can all go home now. I'm already home. What am I talking? I live here. Okay. So, I mean, there you go. I made my own coffee, in case you're wondering. It's beautiful. I know you guys can't see it, but it's beautiful. And okay, so full disclosure, this is my third cup of coffee today. No judgment. Okay, no judgment. I had a cup of coffee before I left home this morning. I only have like, I don't even have full caffeinated coffee at home, but this is espresso. Okay, I made a latte. Then I had coffee with Maria today, which was amazing, at Love Beans Cafe. Beautiful, love it. I actually got called out while I was at coffee today because of my hoodie I have today. I have my Book Nerd University hoodie on, which has my octopus with glasses and a book. And I have an octopus on my car. I have a Jeep. His back tire is covered with an octopus cover. And one came in and actually, like, she was like, "Are you the one with the Jeep?" And I was like, "Yes, that is me." So totally got called out today. But yes, this is my third cup of coffee today. By the way, that person who saw us at the coffee shop, she just got added to our Facebook page as well for our local NaNoWriMo group, because she mentioned that she was going to do NaNoWriMo, and I was like, "I'm your ML." So that was kind of a cool little meetup today. That was awesome. But yes, totally got called out for this. By the way, if you are not a member of Book Nerd University and you would like to enroll, selfless plug here, shameless plug, we're going to be talking. We are still having time open. So we are reading Small Town Big Magic this month for Book Nerd University. It is $10 a month to enroll. And we have our meetings every last Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. In case you were wondering why these meetings are all at 6 p.m. Does it make sense now? Yeah. Okay. All of my Wednesday lives like this are at 6 because that last Wednesday of the month, I have book club, right? So easy. I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? Now, so if you would like to join that, again, you can do so over on patreon.com/funkylikefeathers and get enrolled in Book Nerd University. So here we go. We're going to continue. I know. I totally agree, Bomber. The book has been amazing. So let's keep talking about these themes here. Now, I'm telling you, I took like notes like a flippin' child at this thing. Yes, Offspring? If you're getting chilly. Yeah.
No.
That's up to you.
Okay.
And that was Otis barking. So I do have a window open. It is getting a little chilly. I love it. That's why I'm in my hoodie. So when it comes to your setting, you need to know, or your scene, you need to know some things. And this is what I love here. We also talked about the essence of a scene. Oh, I love that word, essence, right? Essence and minutia. For some reason, those are like my words lately. So, and minutia is because of Ray. If you don't know Ray, come to the writers and write it with writers. You will meet Ray. She has been utilizing the word minutia quite a bit lately. Now, when you're writing a scene, one of the big things that you need to totally know forwards, backwards, and upside down is your settings. Okay. Now, this actually came up recently in another book club that I was going to, because in the book, it talks about an editor not liking a book because of the setting. And it's because the writer was writing about the small little town that they had apparently never been to, and the editor was from that little town. And so when they read how the author wrote the setting, they were like, absolutely not. This is crap. That book, in case you didn't know, is Book Lovers, which is that orange one right there. Okay, in Book Lovers, it's ironic that like they literally talk about this. But yes, please know your settings. Okay, if you are writing about a city you have never been to, you may want to make sure that you delve into that kind of research for that area before you go writing about it. Okay, this is really big, especially with some books that are set in very known places. What is it, Babel, that just came out? I have it tucked up there on my TBR. It takes place at a real college. Okay, so like you need to know your settings, because people who have attended that college or done tours of it or what, they know what is and is not there, right? So know your settings. If you are having a coffee shop, please know how a coffee machine works. Do not tell me that your coffee shop somehow just has like drip coffee like that. No. Okay, like you're going to have to know a little bit more about coffee. Now, I'm not saying you have to be an absolute expert, but you do need to know some of the different things that go into making a solid cup of coffee. Okay. Little things like that. You also need to know, kind of be able to build the place in your mind, because then you'll be able to discuss it in your story, right? But settings and all that, I mean, that literally could be an entire evening on its own, right? So we're going to keep going. Now, make sure that you have reference materials when you are considering your scenes. Okay. So this is also kind of why we talk about like things like vision boards or creating, and again, like you can put together a Pinterest board, because people do this all the time, right? Like a Pinterest board specifically for your characters and settings that you need. I like to create bedroom profiles for each of my characters, because to me, bedrooms are very personal. And so it tells me a lot about a character if I know what their bedding looks like, what color are their walls, kind of what do they have in their room, what's the aesthetic, what are the colors. It tells you a lot about a character. So that's kind of stuff that I build in as part of the character profile. Okay, so knowing what you are working with makes it easier to produce a scene that utilizes those characters, right? Now, one of the biggest things when you are writing these things down, because y'all, I wrote this in pen, okay? This was written in pencil. This was written in pen. Something to keep in mind when you're writing all of these things. You can move them. You can move them around. And you can also write up an entire scene and then get rid of it if you need to. Now, by filling out the scene cards, you will most likely not get rid of the scene. You know why? Because you'll see the purpose for it. You'll break it down. You'll see what led to the scene. You'll see how the scene leads to the next scene. It'll be a puzzle by the time you're done. So even if the story isn't chronologically written out, you can make scene cards that fit together. And then that makes it easier to write the scenes out of order. That means that if you sit down to write this book starting, on the 1st of November, and you just want to write like that climax scene, whatever kind of climax scene that is, I don't know what kind of book you're writing, but if you just want to write that scene first, go for it. Nobody's holding you back. And you have the scene cards. You know where you're going to be in the story by the time you get there. And then you don't have to worry about the pressure of trying to start with page 1, word 1. No, that's a lot of pressure. Okay. If you already know kind of how your story is going to go, you can start writing whichever scene you need to. And when you are done with that scene, you can just put a little notation on it that's already been written. Then you can add scenes if you need to. You can take scenes out if you need to, because you know exactly what they correlate to. The scene card. Yeah, it's that simple. Right, so this makes it very easy to turn and move things around before you really kind of set them in stone, right? So again, big brain dump ideas, and you break it down to main points and beats in your story. Then you break it down to scenes under those points. And this, again, makes it super simple to start moving stuff around and make sure that you have certain details that you need to include in each one before you start writing. And then you have to sit there and try to check through all of your writing to make sure that all the details are there in that scene. If you had written up a scene card, you better know what details need to be included in that scene. So when you write it, you just write it. You don't have to worry about referencing back or searching each line of text to add that breadcrumb trail for that mystery that you're trying to build. You can add it to the scene card. Very, very helpful if you're writing something like mystery. You can add those little breadcrumbs, or if you're writing romance and you need little bits of body language, or you need small moments between characters. Have I introduced you to a scene card? This is where, especially in that note section, you can say, hey, don't forget this needs to be added. Add something for this to happen. I need to build, some of that tension. So when we're talking about that tension of hanging in the balance, you can say, here's the detail that needs to be included. Okay, that's why we have these. Now, when we're using these, again, everything kind of chains together, but in every single scene, something has to change. Something has to happen that affects your character in some way. It has to matter to your character. It has to matter to the plot. Otherwise, it's out. And the hardest part, even if you just want to write the scene, if you just want to write the scene, cool. And that's fine. And sometimes we do that. We just write scenes for ourselves because we think it's a beautiful scene. But if it does not play a role in the story or change your character, it's going to be more difficult when you pass me your manuscript and the whole thing is looped. In case you don't know, that's a delete by an edit. Okay, so because if it has to play a role, it has to matter. Okay, the fact that it's beautiful writing, great. I love reading beautiful writing, but if it doesn't cause or show an effect of some kind, it's going to get cut. And that's going to hurt more. As if instead, if you had like added some kind of breadcrumb trail to it or added some kind of purpose, then it would have been fun. Okay. So now, one of the really cool things that I loved that Maria kind of broke down was that there were 3 requirements of a scene. I was like, 3 requirements of a scene. Here they are. The 3 requirements of a scene. Ready? The setup, the conflict, and the resolution. That's it. That's just like last week when we were talking about the 3 main parts of the story. Beginning, middle, and end. Okay? It's the same thing, just in different words. Setup, conflict, resolution. It's the same thing. Okay? And that's important to kind of pay attention to as well, especially if you're planning something like a series. And I've been talking about the Inheritance Games because I'm literally like 50 pages from ending this entire trilogy. Like I have like 50 pages left and then I'm done. And I'm stressed because I'm worried what's in these last 50 pages and whether or not it's going to make the whole trilogy worth reading, right? Because it has to matter by those last 50 pages. This is your time to shine. Make me remember this series because of this last 50 pages, right? We've got to get everything resolved. We need to build up conflict nicely. We need to tie up some loose ends. But if it's in a series, you want to tie up some loose ends in those previous books, but that last one needs to make your reader go, oh, when they're done reading it, right? Like they need to close it and then sit there and be on like a hangover. Like you know what I'm talking about? A reading hangover. Do you guys know what I mean? When like you read a book and then you have to like sit there and process it for a while. And then you still kind of flash back to the book later on, even when you're reading other things, but like you can't read anything else for the rest of the day because you're just in that world for the rest of that day and you have to kind of detox before you can get into another book. Yes, Sarah J. Maas. Yes, absolutely. Every time I finish a book, I'm like, oh Lord. And you have to like, you see all the like, invisible little numbers above you and stuff because you're still calculating how everything's working. Oh my goodness. That's what you want your readers to feel, is that book hangover. You want them to need a detox of some kind before they go into any other book, right? We want to impact our readers here, make them feel connected to it, right? Now, Maria also mentioned that there were 3 questions of a scene that needed to be a part of this, right? The first question, so again, like 3 questions of a scene. All right. Number 1, who wants what from whom? Thank you for using the appropriate English on this. Who wants what from whom? Right? So there needs to be some kind of imbalance here, right? Again, this is that setup. Who wants what from whom? Okay? That second one is, what happens if they don't get it? What happens? If that character doesn't get what they want, what are the consequences? That was a big word in my family growing up. Think about the consequences. What will happen if this character doesn't get what they want? And the third question, probably one of the most important questions, why now? Why does it have to happen right now? Why is it imperative that this happen in the story right now? This also deals with timing and pacing of your story as well. Like think about, again, that overall, that big picture information before you start breaking things down. And this is, again, part of the reason that when I'm writing up what's going to be happening in a story, I try to write kind of the time brackets, how much time is between each of these major sections, because you want to have some consistent time pacing for yourself. Otherwise, like, I kid you not, the first Inheritance Games story was 3 weeks long. Okay, and like time flies in that book. It covers 3 weeks worth of time. The second book in the Inheritance Games covers 3 weeks, but the character is in a coma for a week. So it's really 2 weeks. And then she's in a coma and then wakes up. And then the last book, and those first two books happened back to back. The last book, 10 months later. Seriously? We just missed 10 months with a character that we were there like every single day. What? And so in the pacing in the first one even slowed down in the second one, and now we're 10 months down the line for the third book. What, why? Right? Did the timing, was it important to the plot in this last book? Yes. Do I like how it was paced out? Absolutely not. I'm not gonna lie about that. Exactly, Bomber. It was whiplash. Okay, you're sitting there going, why? What just happened? Why did we have to, and where did that 10 months go? What happened? And when you skip that much time, that also means your character's gonna change. So you have to pay attention to that too. If you have a large span of time that passes, your character is going to change, grow, or have an anti-growth in that time period, right? So when I'm putting setting information on my cards, I'm including things like place, time of year, or the season, and if there's a certain time of day that I need to be at. So all that kind of information is stuff that I put in that setting section. You can see it's a little bit larger too, right? So I like to put everything in here. Now, okay, so I have a story here, and I don't even remember this story, in case you're wondering. I wrote up this this thing, I think it was last year, 2 years ago probably. I haven't read this since then. So this is a scene, and this was the setup. There's a character named Shane, apparently. Act 1, the beat was the setup. The scene is that Shane proposes. Okay, so let's walk through a scene here. We have the setting. It says Alina's property out of the barn, farm from Princess Bride. So it's letting me know kind of what that scene was supposed to be. Okay. Like I said, I literally don't remember any of this. It's written in my handwriting though. And it's in purple ink, so I know I wrote it. Okay. Ambiance and mood: sweating and working in the garden. Characters: I've got Alina, Shane, Shane's dog named Peeve. Get it? Pet Peeve. And Ruby. Those are all of the characters included in this scene. I'm pretty sure that I have this same scene information. Is this the same story? Okay, yeah. Okay. So, all right. So the story that I set up with giant Post-it notes, right? And I showed you guys this last time when I used like Post-it notes just to do the overall information, right? I break down farther and farther with more and more information as I'm getting into each scene. So at first it was like a big overall thing. So let's look at the pie. All right. So the plot embryo. Right here, it says setup. It says Alina has never left the property where she has grown up. When her bird friend becomes too big for the barn she lives in, Alina relates and feels the need to leave before she loses the ability. Okay, so in this setup, my Post-it note here says show letters from Shane with proposal. Dog delivers letters. So then I put this, it's the setup, right? Here, it's that same information. Show letters with Shane with proposal, dog delivers. Here are the characters involved: Alina, Ruby, Talia, Shane, Shane's dog, Peeve. And then it says Alina has never left property. So I wrote it down so it breaks down the information from my head. And then I break down a scene from that beat. Okay, so we're pulling from that larger idea, and this is going to be one of the smaller sections. Okay, so this is what I will use to write the scene. So here, the setup is that Alina is out in the garden on a hot summer day, tending to the herbs to harvest. Okay. Catalyst: Shane's dog Peeve brings a letter to Alina. He's wanting to marry Alina, not Peeve, Shane, and is asking to meet with Talia to discuss it. Okay. So like this is that catalyst. This is the, oh my goodness, something's happening. Okay. Call to action: Alina does not want to marry pouty Shane and does not want to tell Talia about the letter. Okay. So then hanging in the balance, Talia finds the letter since Alina left it on her desk, considers the offer. Now, Talia is the stepmom who I made to be after Mother Gothel from Rapunzel. So this is a Rapunzel retelling, or I should say a Tangled retelling. Okay. So then the high-low point, Alina feels that she has no say in her own future, weighs the pros and cons of giving up her own life goals. So this is a low point for her. And then the resolution, Alina finally decides she will refuse to marry Shane and uses her lack of dowry as her main reason. So this showcases, okay, this is going to lead to that next scene where we start talking about a lack of dowry. Okay, so building that up. Now, I bring that out for you guys so you can see kind of how that sets up differently and how it just kind of leads you through the scene. So I know some of the details that need to be in there. I know kind of where I'm at in the story. Those are important things to know and to break down what elements I need. Now this, if you have ever watched Nailed It on Netflix, everybody watched Nailed It before? Amazingly awesome show. Okay. I feel like I learned how to cook by watching that. Okay. But these are the things that this is how you accumulate all of your ingredients or your materials before you sit down to make your cake. Okay. When you are typing your actual manuscript, that is you baking the cake. Okay. That is you putting everything together. That is you deciding, yes, I need this and this and this, and I'm going to mix it like this. And now it's in the bake. All right. Like that's what you want. You are putting your things together. So this is just building more and more. Okay. Now let's see. I've got, that is exactly why I made it after. That's hilarious. Honestly, don't remember making that. It's okay. It's fine. All right. So now that's the story arc beat sheet. Okay. That's this one. All right. Now remember, there is another kind of beat sheet that you can utilize, and this is based off of Story Genius. Now, for some reason, this makes sense in my head when I look at the format of it, and I will explain why. Now, when we were talking about the hero's journey, okay, let's see. Where do I have it? In the orange notebook. Okay, hero's journey. So this is one of the versions of it. Okay, this happens with the plotting grid as well. You have this outside ring, and then you have this inside ring. I just really like how this one looks like the cross section of a tree. I have an environmental degree. Okay, trees makes sense in my head. So we have two different levels of the story here. Okay, that is how that is broken down. The outside ring, the inside ring. See what I mean? All right, so this breaks it down in a different format. We don't break down like this way. We're going to break down horizontally, okay? Now, again, this kind of just works with, do you use notebooks that go, side to side, or are you kind of a legal pad person? However your brain works, that's what we're working with, okay? So in this one, all right. So again, this top section, we have that same bit of information for the overall view of your scene. What is the main stuff that we need to know? What part of the story are we at? We have 4 boxes, okay? Don't even pay attention to the bottom 2 yet. All right, we're just looking at the top 2 first because these go together, okay? Now, this is the action part of your story. And this is where we're actually talking about the plot itself. Now, the plot is what happens. Okay, so it says cause, what happens? What happens is the plot. That's what's happening in your story. Okay, this is the actual action of what's happening. Okay, so you're going to say what's going to happen in this scene happens right here. The effect or the consequences. So what's happening? What's going to happen because of that activity? Okay, this lower level here, this is your emotion. This is your internal situation. This is where you have the actual story. So this is why it matters, because how it affects your story. Okay, this is the internal situation for your character. Okay, so external, action, activity, internal, like the feelings, emotions, and how it changes your character. See the difference? External, internal, action, emotion. Okay, now the realization part only needs to make sense to the character. Don't worry so much about how it all ties into everything else. It's how it affects your character. It has to make sense to them. And then down here it says, and so, and then that's how you're going to lead into the next scene. Okay, so because of everything that you've got here, what are we coming to next in the next scene on the next page? Okay, so like I said, some people, this does not make sense. I tell you what, I put some little labels on my page. Okay, and I wrote emotional and external and internal action and emotion. I literally just wrote it on there. Okay, because that way it reminds me of what I'm looking at in the story. And again, when you look at your hero's journey, you have that outside circle and that inside circle, and that kind of lines up. So I was like, you know what you can do? I literally just thought of this today, and it would be ridiculous and hilarious, but I would totally want to print out one of these for each of my scenes and then like put them in a circle on my floor. So I have just an entire hero's journey of my character on my floor. Why not? External, internal story, right? So, okay, so let's break this down. So I did the same thing with these for a different story. Okay, this story is called The Witch's Ring. So I used this, and literally I wrote it back in the day. Okay, so I set up, this was in Act 2, this was Scene 4. I'm dealing with the primary POV of Becca, her granny, Amber's there. So we have, and then we're in the woods behind Becca's house. It's about mid-morning. Becca's building friendships for the first time in a long time. Granny is checking on her progress. Okay. So plot. What happens? I have Pippa and Amber come to teach Becca how to perform a ritual for the changing of the seasons, which Mabon is happening in this. Then the effect, that consequence, is that dinner that night is at Becca's house. A first for her. Becca's house now becomes the meeting spot for this new coven. So I've got, this is what's happening in the actual activity of the story, you know, the plot as a whole. And then for the story, for the character, why it matters. These are new experiences for her and sets up Pippa and Amber as mentors for Becca. So it changes that structure of connections between the characters. See, there's nothing physical that happens there. It's an internal change between their connections. The realization is that Granny has created this new life for Becca from the grave, because Granny's dead in the story. And so I have Rebecca gains confidence in her magical abilities. So see how there's a difference between like that external story and that internal story? That's the difference. That external is your plot, that internal is your story for the character. Okay. Because part of the reason we do this, and again, I can easily use inheritance games for this example. You have to care about the characters. We need to know what's happening on their internals, because otherwise we don't care about them. So the inheritance games, major things happen to these characters, especially the main character. But I've literally had a conversation with multiple teenagers about this, and none of us care about the main character at all. Girl can get blown up and we don't care. We won't cry. It won't affect us. Nothing. She can literally just disappear from the story and we'd be like, cool, okay, whatever. That's not what you want readers to say. It's weird, but it's true. You don't want your reader to sit there and be like, I don't care what happens to that character. No, you want it to matter. Okay. So what I want you guys to do, if you have not already printed Give me a minute. If you have not already printed these from a Patreon page, go ahead and head over there. I challenge you to actually try both of them just so that you can see how they break down differently. And you can try to decide which one works the best for your head, which one you think will be the most productive for you. And then at the same time, you can use both kinds of scene cards while writing your story. You don't have to use all of the same kind. Y'all know that, right? Like I didn't have to say that, right? Y'all know that there's options that you can mix and match whatever kinds of printouts you want, and they don't have to match. They just like your socks. They don't have to match. I mean, mine do. I'm like that. Mine do, but you don't have to have them match. Okay, like you can have some scene cards that like for certain scenes, this one just works really well. And then you can have other scenes where this one is the cat's meow. No pun intended. If you're using Save the Cat writes a novel. You know what I mean? So try both of them for a scene so you can figure out which one you're the most comfortable with. Okay, because like seriously, bum, your socks never match. Mine are always matching. Fun fact. Okay. But yeah, let's try some different scene cards so we can see how they function. Okay, so you can actually try to put some words on the page. Now, again, I've kind of broken it down for you guys how I put a scene on there. I hope it kind of explains what to put in each of those sections. Now, if you have heard me this entire evening, if there's my dogs or somebody on the street, thank you. If you have been listening to everything I have said this evening and you are still like, Funky, I heard the words, but nothing stuck. Kid, I feel you. Okay. Like literally, I printed out the story arc beat sheet, and I literally took these to IHOP for a nano meetup and literally had to like stop Maria, and I was like, please teach me again, because it just didn't I'm staring at it, I read the words, it seems to be self-explanatory, but what on earth am I actually supposed to put there? And I was like, okay, here's about kind of what's happening in the scene, you know, like but I don't know what I'm supposed to put there. You're not alone. Okay. Like these seem intense. They seem intimidating. And I get that. That's part of the reason I like these, because I like just kind of the open space and I can just kind of put some bullet points of stuff that's supposed to happen. To me, this feels less intimidating because it's just, there's fewer things that I have to worry about. But this might make a whole lot more sense to your head. This might be like, oh, well, I just run through this and right there. Cool. Nobody's saying that's wrong. That's why we have options, y'all. And if you have found another like format that works even better, if you have a scene card that you were like, oh my goodness, this is the mecca of scene card, like send it to me. Absolutely. I want to see what it looks like. I want to try it. Right? Like it has to make sense in the noggin. Right? Like as long as we can pull our story from it, that's what matters. Okay. So print out some of these. I'm going to set a timer and let's try to work on some of these scene cards to actually put some of them into action, to just get the ball rolling. Okay. Just to kind of feel it out. I'm not expecting you to have anything fully fleshed. Y'all, I am not that kind of person. Okay. But let's try some just for the fun of it, to be like, why not? All right. So I'm going to set a timer for 15 minutes. I'm getting my codex together. I'm getting my blank pages, my one with my notes. Now, okay. So here's the thing. I have these templates that I got at the workshop from this past weekend, and I wrote notes on them, right? So I like told myself like action and emotion, external, intro, because that way it reminds me what goes where. Okay, so I can have this as a reference sitting next to me as I try to fill out the blank one. Okay? All right. So let's try that. I'm opening my codex. I will talk to you and show you codexes this weekend. Okay? That workshop is at 11 o'clock this Saturday at By the Book in the Woodlands. I will be teaching that workshop. It is 1 hour long, and we're going to go over codex creation and how to organize it and what all goes in it and all that jazz. Okay? So let's get some scene situations here. All right. 15 minutes on the clock. We're going to work on some. Ready, set, go. Thanks, Maria. I'll see you on Saturday. That's Otis and Iggy. There's two dogs that are little. And somebody walked down the street and it freaked them out. Tell Lola I'm sorry. About 9.5 minutes left. just over 4 minutes. One more minute. Thank you. Oh. 15 seconds. It's ridiculous because I was sitting right there with it. And for some reason, I still act like it's surprising when a timer goes off. Okay. So how did we do in that section, right? Okay, so I utilized this scene card. This is what I broke down. Now, in this scene card, okay, so my story is based on Secret Garden. Okay, so in this scene, though, that I think is going to be a lot of fun to write, so this is why I started on this one, it's where I'm going to have the main character of Mary Lennox walking the halls and peeking into the bedrooms at Misselthwaite Manor, and she's going to see all the paintings and stuff like that. So this is going to be an act 2. So I have a hero's journey here. It's going to be an act 2. This is the tests, allies, and enemies, and experimenting with new conditions. So I'm right here in the plot embryo, just so you know, it starts there and goes around. So just before that midpoint is where I'm at here on the plot, and that's on the hero's journey. Then on the Save the Cat beat sheet, because I'm cross-referencing these to make sure that I have no plot holes, right? This is where we're in Act 2 on fun and games. So this one says, this is where we see the hero in their new world. They're either loving it or hating it, succeeding or floundering, also called the promise of the premise. This section represents the hook of the story, why the reader picked up the novel in the first place, okay? So if you want this, it's on my Patreon as well, okay? So is the hero's journey. Okay, both of these references are already on my Patreon as well. This one is two-sided. There are two little things there, okay? There are two sides to that. But both of those are there. These are the pieces of information that's telling me where I'm at in my story for this scene, okay? So Act 2, and then it says the beat is tests, allies, and enemies experimenting with new conditions. The beat is fun and games, not so fun. We're in the world of chaos at this point. The scene, Mary roams the halls alone. Setting, Misselthwaite Manor, in the halls and the rooms at nighttime. Ambiance and mood, it's creepy, it's raining out, it's dark outside. Characters, it's only Mary in this scene. She's wearing a nightgown and socks. Okay, so that's just the top section here. I haven't even told you about like everything I actually have. That's just the top part that tells me what I'm going to be paying attention to and details that I need to include down here. Okay, so now in mine, it's a little bit different from the original story. Okay, we're going to creep it out just a little bit more. So the plot, this first part, right? This is where we're going to have the action happening with Mary. Okay, the cause, what happens? Excessive rain outside makes it so Mary can't play out on the moors. She runs and roams through the halls, peeking into different bedrooms. Mary is trying to not get caught by Mrs. Metlock. Okay, these are just bullet points. So there's 3 things that I listed there. The effect, what are the consequences? Okay, Mary finds paintings of children in every room. Lightning strikes and lightning strikes make the gloss of paint in the eyes shine or glare. So I want that to happen in the scene. And then Mary is terrified and filled with questions about the children. Okay, so I want to show that fear in her. Now the story down here, this first box, here we go. Why it matters. It's going to show that Mary is inquisitive by nature. She was told to stay in her room, but she does not follow rules without question or reason. Okay, the realization, just this top section right here, that top half of this last box right there. The realization, Mary knows that something is wrong, refuses to think all the children are family because they look so different and they all have different backgrounds in the paintings. Okay, then, and so this bottom section is going to lead me into that next scene. And so Mary trusts no one in the house and runs back to her room in tears, writes in her notebook about what she found, and will start asking questions to find liars in the house. Okay, so this is a scene. So this scene, you know, it doesn't mean this is going to happen on one page. It doesn't mean that this has to take a whole chapter. It doesn't mean that it can't take a whole chapter. I can make an entire chapter do this, okay? I can make it as long or as short as I want. But everything here is important to happen at this one time, right? So we went from a very blank page that looked almost like this and then filled it all in. And that was in less than 15 minutes, okay? You guys saw me doing other stuff, looking around. I had to check all my references to make sure exactly what beat I needed to be in. In 15 minutes, we have a scene ready to go, okay? This is imperative to keep in mind when you feel overwhelmed about preparing for NaNoWriMo. Okay, very important to keep in mind. This is why during Nano, even if you are not fully prepped by the time Nano officially starts, this is why we do things like word sprints. Okay, setting the timer helps you have that little extra boost of, hey, I can get this done in 15 minutes. Okay, we have a whole scene charted out in 15 minutes. Now, again, I did not go into super duper detail. I've got 3 bullet points. I have 3 bullet points. Okay, nice and simple, nothing too complex. All right, I set up the scene as much as I can so that it tells me what kind of details I need to keep in mind. And when I sit down to write this scene, I can just take this, sit down, and crank it out because it tells me where the scene starts. It tells me everything to include in it, and then it tells me where I need to lead this into the next scene. Okay, so this is why, and again, because it's not the beginning of the story, right? This is in Act 2. This is right before the midpoint. This is as everything starts to change. I didn't start writing the scene cards at the very beginning of the story. I don't write starting with the first page of the story, ever. Okay, because it's just too much pressure. Okay, you're trying to hit that perfect opening line, and it's just not always going to happen. Okay, like it's just not. And then you're going to be sitting there second guessing yourself 1,000 times, and you're going to rewrite that first scene multiple times because you don't want that to be how the story opens up, or it's not powerful enough, or it doesn't hold the punch that you wanted, or does it suck people in? Just start writing the story. Okay, you will get there. You will end up writing all of the scenes. But if you organize it now and know what your scenes are going to be and what you want included, it makes it a lot easier to sit down, grab a scene card, and start writing. A lot easier. Okay, so now how did I figure out what I was going to write my scene on? Okay, because this is the brain dump that I put together last week, right? And it's 3 pages long. And some of it's just random frivolous information, and some of it I won't even use. Okay, some of the stuff is not going to go into the book. Why not? Why will I not put all of this into the book? I mean, it's pretty simple. I'm sure you can figure out why. Some of it doesn't actually make sense. I was brain dumping. So I now get to go through my brain dump and figure out what I want to keep and what I don't want to keep and what doesn't make any sense. Or, so in one part of my brain dump, I say that Colin Creevy is actually very old. In another part, he's not. He is a child in another part. Those are literally contradictory. Okay, do I want an old guy stuck in a little kid's body who doesn't age, kind of like Interview with a Vampire? Or do I want this kid to actually be like legitimately that age? Well, there has to be one or the other. I can't have both of them possible, right? So that's the thing. A brain dump is just essentially to get that information out of your head. Then to go through and go, okay, which ones do I really want to use? Which ones are good? Which ideas just are not going to work here? Maybe it's a good idea for another manuscript another time. You don't have to use it this time. It's fine. It's okay. You don't have to. That's why we have codexes. Okay. So did you guys use the Story Genius card or the Story Arc card? Which one did you attempt in these 15 minutes? I would like to know that because I think that's cool to know. Which ones you guys try to utilize here? Like I said, the Story Genius card seems to work well with my head. I like the simplicity of it, but for other people, it may be way too simple. And you need those other sections, and it breaks it down more completely. I totally get that. Like, I totally get it. Because especially there's some scenes that like, oh, bummer you did both. That's awesome. Beautiful. I love that. Yes. Did you find one to function better with your head than another one? Or, I mean, like, do you have a favorite so far? Or are they both just interesting to try out? Right? I mean, like, this is important stuff to try. And that's the hardest part about trying to figure this out. Okay, so Bomber said, Genius one came naturally, but I think I overcomplicated it. LOL. So I don't blame you. Okay, so again, that's why it's so important to try these all the time. And the same thing that we say about, building characters and character profiles, and we're like, oh, go to a coffee shop, sit down and write up somebody's character profile. We're not kidding, because practice, practice, practice. Like I said, this is my 5th year to do this. I have been writing different things, and I mean, you can say, oh, I've been writing since I was a child. Like, I literally took paper and cut little holes and tied them together when I was a kid and made little stories. Yes, I've been writing since I was a child. I was on newspaper in middle school. I was on the newspaper in high school. I, obviously wrote a lot of papers in college, things like that. I mean, like, I've been writing for a very long time, as well as editing. I originally went to college to become an editor. I've always loved grammar. I've loved story structure, things like that. Did I get a degree in that? No, I got a very, very complicated degree. That's fine. Okay. I still love editing, and I still love what I do, and I still love story. And that's why we break this down. Okay. So let's see. You said that both are interesting to try, but I do like all the other questions. So more practice. Exactly. Right. So again, much like creating character profiles, when we are creating and filling in these scene cards, it's important to try the different formats. Just like creating characters, try writing something you know. So if you had an interesting lunch today, or if you had an interesting phone call, something that affected your day, right? Try writing it in a scene card. Try the different scene cards, because you know that situation, you were there, right? And again, include as many details as you feel need to be included to complete that scene idea. So if what you were wearing was important, or if your character is going to be having a conversation with somebody else, both characters need to be listed. Is something about their wardrobe important? If somebody adjusts their glasses during the conversation, because don't forget, you need to include movement in your scenes, right? Are they pacing? Is somebody pacing while having a conversation? Are they on the phone? We need to know what kind of phone that they have. You can include that in your character profile information, but at the same time, you do need to mention that on your scene card and be like, hey, don't forget, include the phone, right? And again, if you are utilizing that story arc, down in the notes is where you can make those small notations. Phone needs to be included. Is your character showcasing any quirks in this section? Quirks, you guys, are the random little things that characters do. Okay. Again, I bring up Natalie Portman's character in Mr. McGonagall's Wonder Emporium. Is that it? Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium. There it is. Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium, where she plays, imaginary keyboards everywhere she goes. That's a quirk. Okay, if you have a character who constantly taps her pen, it's really annoyances. It's little things that characters do that could be considered obnoxious to someone else. Those are quirks. Okay, if you have them, something as simple as this, especially if you have a character who deals with magic or anything, if they only stir their coffee clockwise, if there's a magic system, that's actually important. Okay, if your character always writes their name with a little heart over the I or something, it's a quirk. Okay, it's a quirk. It makes them very specific to them. The clacking of ID badges. Yes, you hold them and or when somebody has them on the little retractable thing and they keep pulling them out and letting it zip back in, right? Or they do they have them on like the little lanyards? Do you need to have a lanyard? Is that part of your character's what they're wearing to the office? Right? A little lanyard thing? Yeah, like they're quirks, okay? Or if somebody like wears rubber bands and like snaps them, do they have a ring that they fidget with? Okay, I literally, as ridiculous as it sounds, I carry a rock. I do. I carry a rock in my pocket. Sometimes you'll see me holding this, and I will just randomly be rubbing a rock while you're talking to me. Okay, which means that my character would always have to have a rock in my pocket. I literally have an eye twitch. Yes, Yes, there's an eye twitch. Just today it started actually. Nano is coming when I start twitching. Okay. So we know it's on its way. So those are the kind of quirks. You need to decide, does it need to be included in this scene? Does it not to be included in this scene? The weather will affect your character in different ways. If it is raining and your character does wear certain kinds of things would be affected by the rain. If I'm wearing glasses and it is raining, I'm not going to be able to see very well for very long. Okay, water's going to get on my lenses. I'm going to have an issue. If I'm wearing contacts, not so much a problem, right? But if you have a character who's like trying to get through something and it's raining, yes, you need to mention that we have to wipe off our glasses. By the way, fun little tidbit for anybody who does wear glasses, we do not clean these on our clothes. As somebody who wears glasses, I do not wipe these on my shirt to if I want to see through them. Okay, like I have legitimate glasses cleaning rags, okay, to clean my glasses to see through. So I think that's hilarious all the time where like you hear, oh yeah, the character takes off the glasses and they rub it on their shirt and they put it back on. I was like, no. If you have glasses, you know what I'm talking about. They get super foggy. They're all swipey on there. Like you can see every no. Okay. Yeah, there's just we could go into depth, like intense detail about little random quirks like that. Like if your character puts on lipstick, do they blot it on tissue paper? That's not something that people really do anymore. So unless you are building a character or have a setting where it's like the 90s, the 80s or 90s, we really don't blot lipstick anymore. Y'all ever think about that? If your character lives up north, the vents for the air are going to be on the floor. They're not going to be in the ceiling. I'm here in the South. I live in Texas. Our vents are in the ceiling because they pull out the hot air. It gets hot here, so the vents are in the ceiling, right? Fans would go a certain direction based upon where you are or what season it is. Okay, so again, things to keep in mind when you are dealing with characters in different settings. Okay, consider the time period. I had a writer one time. We were at a meetup. There were some story dice that we were throwing around. They had different items on them. And this writer rolled the die and they got a credit card. And they had to actually check what year credit cards were available because their character was like, I think in the 40s, the 30s or 40s. So they had to even see if credit cards were around at that time. Luckily, they had like just come out a couple of years before. I think Sears was allowing female clients to have credit cards at the time. So it's stuff like that where, yes, the details need to make sense. So when you're writing these scenes, run them through your head because you need to know that they really do function correctly. Okay, you need to make sure that it is realistic for not only the story, but for your character. So when we're building those characters and we're showcasing their behaviors, that means that we're going to know approximately how they're going to react in the situations that we put them in. Okay, so if I had a full-grown adult character, let's say I have a full-grown adult male who has some kind of magical abilities. Let's say he's like Piper from Charmed and he has the ability to freeze or blow up with his hands. Now, if he's in this scene where he's running through, hallways and there's lightning, that character will not behave the same way that a female child with no magical abilities will behave, right? Obviously. So we need to showcase how that character is going to behave, what their intended reaction is going to be, and how it's going to lead them through the story and how it's going to affect them in the story later on. Now, I bring up the Graveyard book quite often. And it's funny that Maria's not here because this is a book that she very much likes and it's a book that I do not. And it is because of one chapter that I'm not a fan of this book. It's an amazing scene. It's an amazing chapter that we have where the main character, his name is Bod, which is short for nobody. He has an interaction with like a woman in white who is like from the other side kind of thing. She rides a horse. Once a year, she comes into town and she dances with everybody in town. Everybody shows up and walks outside. And then the next day, they have no memory of this entire party happening. Like nobody remembers anything, but it happens. Well, in the book, you actually get to see this scene. Yes, the woman in white shows up. She's on a horse. Everybody's dancing. Everybody's having a great time. The next day, our main character, Bod, has no memory of the dance. This woman in white, this character is on the back of my copy of the book. She's on the cover. It does not have a lasting effect on the character. He has zero memory of it happening, not even an inkling of a memory of it happening. It does not change or affect him in any way. Why was that chapter included? If you want to see me rant about it, I literally posted an entire YouTube video to give a review of The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman, who's a great writer. I love some of his stuff, really great. But that one chapter in that book just killed it for me. Okay. So things like that, your scenes need to have a purpose. They need to lead your character through their arc or through that story that you're putting them through. Okay. Now remember, keep in mind that those scenes need to have a purpose. If you write a scene that's just pretty, that you just are putting stuff on paper because goodness, you just need words, that scene's probably going to get cut. Okay. If you don't cut it while you're doing rereads, someone like me is going to cut it when we do the read. Okay, so pay attention to the fact that this needs to have an effect on that character. We either need to see something about the character. And again, this is why I like when we break it down into, here's what's happening to the, externally to the character. Here's the action that's going on. And then here's how it affects the character. So even if, you have a scene that is primarily for fluff purposes, but it shows us a lot in the character, I may look at it and go, okay, can we show this somewhere else? But again, if you lay out your scene cards and you can see them all lined up and go, okay, this happens and this happens and this happens, and you can then leave that breadcrumb trail, like if you have a mystery happening and go, okay, here's the primary scenes. I need something to happen over here that's going to lead to this down here. Right? Like we need to give a hint earlier on that this is going to happen later on. Even though it's not a real obvious hint, maybe it's just a tiny one, it's going to add up over time. And that's what your reader wants, because again, you don't want a mystery or a romance where things happen out of nowhere, because the reader wasn't led to that conclusion, right? Like you didn't show the reader that this was even a possibility. If you have no breadcrumb trail to figure out who the killer is, or to figure out that these characters are going to be in a relationship by the end, you need to add those in. And by having scene cards, you can add those little notes on there and go, oh, this needs to be added to that, right? Because, and I like to do it, with Post-it notes, just because it makes it stand out. It makes it obvious that this is extra stuff that I need to include on that scene. Just like when you see the plot embryo, it's got Post-it notes. The first thing you see is those 3 Post-it notes, right? One of them says, show letters from Shane. The other one says, show Alina at Velma and Simon's living like Cinderella. And the other one says, Talia shows up, sees Alina, and offers her to come back home. So these are major things, right? But they weren't included in the original write-up. So having things like that is like, this definitely needs to happen, and it stands out for a purpose, okay? So again, if you guys need printouts of these scene cards, we have the one from Story Genius scene card that I worked on earlier. I've got the Story Arc scene card as well, so that you have those 2 different printouts. They are free to download and print as much as you need on my Patreon page. So patreon.com/funkylikefeathers. They're totally free to access, totally free to download. Get as many copies as you need and try both of them out. They function so differently. Okay. You Don't necessarily know how many you're going to need as you sit down to write out your story, because remember, each main section of your story can have multiple scenes. Is it possible to fit every, beat as a scene? Probably not. Honestly, probably not. And that may be a difficult thing to try out this year, is to break down a beat into two different scenes or three different scenes. But that could be a really good thing for you to try. Another thing to keep in mind, do you have a different point of view that you're working with? By having these scene cards kind of laid out, especially if you have a book with those changing POVs, you can say whose point of view you're working from in each of the scenes. Okay. This happens a lot in the Lady Jamie books, the ones that are up there and over here. We have multiple points of view that happen throughout the book. So, having those scene cards and knowing, okay, this is this person's point of view, this person's point of view, and this person's point of view makes it a lot easier. If you've never seen inside of these books, at the beginning of each of the chapters, they actually tell you just flat out whose point of view you're at, right? So it's kind of nice because there's no question about whose eyeballs you're going to be looking through, right? That's important. But the overall story arc is still there. So again, it's a lot easier to see this kind of stuff happen if you have the idea of the story put down first, right? So again, this is why these workshops over the weekend have been sectioned out the way that we've done it, is so that you can take these big ideas and break them down smaller and smaller until finally you are just putting in the details. Okay. So again, you start off with this big story idea, like this big 30-second, elevator pitch. And then we're going to break it down into, okay, beginning, middle, climax, end. Then we're going to take it down to the major beats or the major, chunks of that hero's journey or the plot embryo, the main points of your story. Then we're going to break it down into scenes. See how easy it is to go down into the rabbit hole? Then as soon as you have all of those scenes broken out, then you're just going to be able to pull out one of those scene cards and type up the scene. You can start anywhere and you can end anywhere and you'll know exactly where you are. And again, if you have something like, or even if you don't have Scrivener, if you are setting these up and you have them put into your, even as Word documents, if you have them listed under act, whatever, and then scene card, whatever, you'll also be able to kind of move them around. So you can put act, scene, and then have your little, a name for what is happening in the scene. So you can also, again, get that bird's eye view of the story. This is also a big thing when it comes to filling in plot holes, because I've seen some big ones. I know that Balmer was reading a book earlier today, and honestly, girl, I don't even know what book you were reading. You just told me that you saw a giant plot hole, and I don't know what book you had in your hand. You didn't tell me. But this is also where that big picture view is a big help, because you can break it down. You can see easier where the plot holes are. Again, plan out where those breadcrumb trails are and fill that in before you get down into the nitty-gritty details. Okay. Now, if you guys are, how many of you guys actually think that you're ready for, I know you were excited. That's funny. How many of you guys think that you're like totally ready for Nano? Like ready to go, fully ready. Everything's good to go. Yes. Because I'm not even a little bit. So again, this weekend, we'll be talking about codex creation. Now, again, I've learned a lot over the years, okay? And I'm going to be bringing you a lot of examples of things that I attempted to do over the years to create codexes, because first year I did this, I was totally winging it. I found out about NaNoWriMo originally in like late September, my first time. So yeah, I was really winging it that first year. And this is all stuff that I've learned over the past 5 years. Okay. Oh, just got a text message from her. Big magic, big or small city, big magic. Got it backwards. Small city, big magic. So this weekend we're going to be talking about codex creation. We're going to talk about all of the parts that go into a codex, the resources that go into a codex, why I organize a codex the way that I do, the importance of it. And this can also really come into play when you have an editor looking at your project. And here's why. If you have a lot of characters, okay, or if you have major settings and all this kind of stuff, if an editor is looking at your work and they have questions or there is information missing, you have it available in your codex. Easiest thing right there. It is a resource ready to go. All right. Now, if you want to have strictly electronic resources, that's okay too. Scrivener actually has a NaNoWriMo template, believe it or not. They have a NaNoWriMo project template available in their program. So when you open it up, it has all that kind of stuff. It has a section for your character profiles, your settings. It has a character profile template that will lead you through some questions and has a little section for you to add pictures of your characters there and everything. So if you really just don't know where to start, that actually can be a big help too. But again, like start a Pinterest board with some of the ideas, so that you can start kind of organizing your thoughts and again, brain dumping on this stuff. But that codex is going to be, some people call it a series Bible. Okay, so that's kind of important to note too. What on earth is codex? It's the same thing as a series Bible. It's just that I'm not a religious person, so I don't utilize the term Bible. I just call it a codex. All right. You can see I've got tabs and everything in there, and it's a binder. So that's most of the materials that I use. Everything that I put in there is stuff that I have printed out, and we're going to be talking about all that kind of stuff this weekend. Okay. Again, that workshop starts at 11. At the local bookstore called By the Book here in the Woodlands Spring area. Details for that are in our region's event board, so you can find that there. It's also on By the Book's Facebook page and everything, so you can get the details there on how to get everything possible set up for Saturday. All right. Yes, Offspring. Okay. I love you. So all of those kinds of things are all coming together. It is kind of the culmination. We are at October 20th, you guys, or it's the 19th today. We're on the 19th. I consider the 19th over, so, the 20th. And then we'll have 11 days before Nano officially starts. There's going to be a lot of stuff happening. I will be back for live write-in next Wednesday to, set up and talk to you guys even more about codex creation, obviously. And then that last Saturday of the month, I'm going to be doing a workshop specifically on writing resources and some of the resources that I use all the time. You see me with this notebook and it looks crazy, but it's because I take it everywhere when I'm writing. You see all the weird little tabs sticking out and everything. I have a ton of resources in here. I have accumulated other ones in this notebook. You just end up carrying some with you and everything. So that's why it's important to organize the information, right? So what resources will work best for you, how to use them, the whole ordeal, how to get them to function while you're writing, all that jazz. Okay, we're going to be talking about all of that. Now, for NaNoWriMo itself, we do have, I'm going to continue doing these live on Wednesdays during NaNoWriMo. Again, 6 o'clock, because that last Wednesday of the month, I have my Book Nerd University meeting at 7. Okay, so it'll only be 1 hour on that last Wednesday. However, during Nano, it's going to be word sprints mostly, right? We're not going to do as much chatting like we do on these nights. In Nano, it's going to be timers, a lot of timers to get us going and cranking through that. I'm also going to be doing Monday nights at 7 p.m. Okay, and those will probably only be 1 hour because we're going to be doing word sprints, churning through, trying to get you guys to get some words on paper. Okay, check your local region to see what events they have available for you guys. There are tons of things. If you are in the middle of the day, you can literally jump on YouTube and look for a NaNoWriMo live write-in. You will find them. You can even find people on Twitch. There are Discord servers. People do it through Twitter. Not even kidding. Okay. There are Instagram challenges for Nano. NaNoWriMo has some specific things if you want to get in on those as well. For the local region, I'm also going to be posting a daily prompt. So those are going to be available for you guys if you just don't know what to write about that day or you're just not feeling it. I'm going to post random little prompts on there to help just kind of get the creative juices flowing. All right. We've got this, you guys. Okay. Now's the time to start setting up for Nano next month. You've got about a week and a half. Now, I just posted a video earlier, what was it, last Friday, about my NaNoWriMo 2022 prep tips. All right. 5 years in the making, I have figured these things out. Do I utilize the Nano bingo card? I have not been utilizing that, so I did not make one this year. Okay. If you guys really want me to make a NaNoWriMo bingo card, I can. It's for things like kill off a character, have, what was it? Reheat your coffee, give yourself a high five for not pushing delete, those kinds of things. And it goes on a bingo card and you try to get bingo while doing Nano. I also have not been doing rewards for myself for the past couple of years. I don't even really pay attention to that kind of stuff. I might attempt a 10K in a day this year. If that's something that you want me to put on the calendar for like a day to attempt a 10K, I might be able to do that for you guys. If you were not aware, there is a Write 10K in a Day group on Facebook where you can earn a sticker for writing 10K in a day. I just reorganized this drawer and I probably still won't be able to find the stinking stickers. Oh, there's one. All right, so I got this last December for writing 10K in a day. It's a very cool little sticker. Okay, and she literally sends those to you in the mail for free. I mean, just you go on the page and you be honest and write your 10K in a day. If you write 50K in the month, you get a 50K in a month sticker. So I'm kind of excited to see what their stickers look like for November. That'll be fun. But yeah, all those are there. So again, there's tons of stuff that you can try. There's tons of stuff that you can do. Do not think ever that you were doing this alone. Ever. Okay? Seriously, like I want you guys to know that we are all real people. We are all here for you. There's a NaNoWriMo message board on the website, on the NaNoWriMo website. We've got local pages for you guys. Please participate as much as possible from wherever you are, right? If you're on the Facebook page, participate over there. We even have our own hashtag for this region, if you did not know. We have the custom bookmarks made by Maria, and the hashtag is on there. So you'll be able to get that in your goodie bags when I see you guys. Please know that you are not alone doing this. We all are dealing with the insanity of Nano, trying to juggle personal lives, business lives, family lives, the whole ordeal at the same time as writing a book in a month. Y'all do realize how crazy this is, okay? Like, give yourselves credit. This is not easy to take on. Most writers who are full-time writers do not take this on, okay? So give yourself some leeway. Now is the time. If you need to start writing, affirmations on pieces of paper, and every single morning you pull one out and that's what you read that morning, every single day in Nano, do it. Now's the time to set up, okay? Like, I've been stashing prompts. Start stashing affirmations. Not even kidding, because it gets really, really difficult, especially because it's the holiday season. Everybody's kind of crazy. Like, please take care of yourselves. Get yourselves a good water container. You need to start drinking water. I kid you, I literally have a jar. It's a jar. It's not a jar of dirt. It's a jar of water. Okay, clean water. What I've been drinking. Okay, so like, make sure that you're staying hydrated. Make sure that you have some good backup meals stuff on hand. I always have stuff to make green bean casserole at my house. Always. Comfort food. Okay, get some snacky stuff now. You're going to want it later. Let's be honest. Okay, try to start setting up activity into your days so that gets you out of your chair, gets you out of your house, walk the block, I don't care, something that where you physically have to move. Because if you start setting up those behaviors now, it'll be more second nature by the time we get to Nano. And then you'll only be adding one extra thing into your day because you'll already have these other practices as part of your day. Okay, so I don't care if it is like a 10-minute jazzercise video. I don't care if you are twirling your pen and acting like it is a baton and you are at the front of a Thanksgiving Day parade. I don't care. Do something to get out of your chair, to move around, okay, to like get out of these little bubbles. You gotta get out of the bubble, y'all. Gotta get out of the bubble. Okay? Yes, welcome to the pep talk. That's where we're at. Okay. I used to do on another channel that I used to have Pep Talk Tuesday. Okay. And I literally would give people pep talks every single Tuesday. So, yes, you want a lecture? I'm your mom. Right there. I'll be your mama. We will make this happen. Okay. You take care of yourself. You drink your water. You wear your stinking seatbelt. You brush your stinking teeth. I want to make sure that you're flossing. Okay. Mouthwash is not healthy for your mouth. Do not use mouthwash. Use a tongue scraper, floss, and brush correctly. Okay. 2 minutes, people. 2 minutes. Drink all of your water. Make sure that you have a protein at every single meal, at least 3 colors worth of food at every single meal. See, I literally was a personal trainer for 6 years. All right. You got questions about self-care? I'm here for you. But do not forget to take care of yourself. Nano is insane. We all know it's true. Okay. Make sure you're getting your sleep. Start setting yourself up for like these evening routines to settle, figure out, start planning now where your writing time is going to be. Do not say that you're going to do Nano if you don't have yourself set up to do Nano. You know what I mean? Like it's like telling yourself that you're going to be in an MMA fight, but you're only giving yourself 30 days and you're not going to train. Okay, like start setting yourself up now to meet the goal that you want by the end of November. Okay, we've got a lot of work to do. There's literally it's going to feel like you have 0 time to do any of it. I feel you. Okay. This is why when we're writing, we set up timers. Timers. If you are dealing with toddlers, if you are dealing with yourself in a toddler mental state, timers. Okay. They're super handy. It's super simple, but you set a timer and suddenly you get everything done. Okay. Somebody else told me about the Post-it note thing. So what they do is they take that is a card. Okay. They take a regular size Post-it note. See how it is? Okay. So they take a Post-it note and they write their list of things to do for the day on the Post-it note. If it does not fit on the Post-it note, it does not get done. Okay. So, and that way you kind of give yourself some space. If it doesn't fit, you don't do it. Okay. Which means you have to start setting priorities. So if like you have work and writing, brushing your teeth, like make sure that it's all on there. And if it doesn't fit, it doesn't happen. Okay. So start prioritizing stuff, start setting up your calendar. Everybody makes fun of me because of all my calendars. Dude, you want to see how I set up my calendars and the fact that I color code and everything? I have multiple videos on this channel about how I set up my calendars. People laugh about it all the time, but you know what? I'm productive. Proof's in the pudding, people. Okay, like set yourself up now because otherwise it's going to be a world of hurt when November comes. And you know it's true because suddenly you're going to be trying to juggle 10 things instead of 1. Think about it. If today's the 19th, okay, starting tomorrow, you have 11 days to prepare for Nano for November. If you add 1 thing to pay attention to each day for the next 11 days, you can start paying attention to those things so they just become your new normal until November hits and you're on a roll. So if tomorrow all you focus on is making sure that you drank all of your water, and the next day you focus on to make sure that you have a good nighttime routine before bed, and the next day you make sure that you actually slept that entire time. And then the next day you make sure that you have at least 3 colors at every single meal. And then the next day you make sure that you had 3 full meals and 2 snacks at bare minimum, right? Like you're eating enough, because if you're not taking in enough, you're not going to have enough energy to do this. Okay. Like I said, it's like talking to a mom. Okay, I'm not going to tell you anything you don't already know, but this is important stuff to remember because this is where it comes into play, especially if you have anyone or anything depending on you. Okay, like if you have pets, y'all, I have 11 pets. Okay, that's just pets. I also have a human child. Like, yes, she's not a toddler anymore, praise the gods, but at the same time, I homeschool. Okay, that is on top of juggling many accounts. I go to the gym 4 days a week. Like, there are things that I have to prioritize and I have to reschedule, and I teach classes and I have to read. I have to read. Let me put it that way. It's not like, oh, hey, she gets to sit around and read all day. No, like I have to read. It's part of my job. Okay, I teach these classes. These are important. I have people depending on me. Set yourself up for next month. It will make it a lot easier. If you want to have time to read each day, or if you just want time to watch trash TV, put that into your schedule now so that it just becomes your normal for next month because you're going to need that. You're going to need that trash TV next month. Okay? Like whatever TV show you've been wanting to watch, save it for next month. All right? Do it in half-hour segments. And before bed, watch that half hour. You read a little bit, go to bed. Have your water. Have your vitamins. What vitamins are you taking? Pay attention to these things. Do you have vitamins? Do you have a multi? Like fill in the gaps because you're going to be eating candy. You're going to be eating candy. Okay? You're going to get very snacky next month. You're probably going to be a little grouchy. Now it's time to warn everybody. You've got a lot on your plate. Okay? Like, don't take offense when you're not answering every single text message or every single phone call. Give yourself some space. Have a weekly appointment with yourself. I'm not kidding. Y'all think I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. Okay, like you need to put something on the books for every single week where you're doing things or nothing. Doing nothing is just as important as doing something during the month of November. Not kidding. Okay, start making your priority list, kind of decide over the next few days, things you want to focus on for each day, right? So that it becomes a lot easier for next month. Okay? Mm-hmm. 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 Good. All right. So if y'all have questions at all along the way, if you know me in real life, I'm right here. Okay. Call, text, message, whatever. All right. If you only know me through YouTube, that's cool too. Like leave a comment. Okay. Like I will message you back. Like we can have these conversations. Okay. If you need to message me over on Facebook, dude, it's Funky Like Feathers on Facebook. I'm Funky Like Feathers everywhere, except on Twitter where it made me Feathers Funky or something like that. Like, but I'm never on Twitter. So I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Facebook. I'm on YouTube. Like, I'm not hiding. Just put it that way. Okay. If you need advice on any of this, ask. That's why we're all here. Okay. NaNoWriMo is an international situation, worldwide. All around the world, people are going through this. You are not alone. Okay. It's that easy. If you want to stalk somebody and show up in the middle of a parking lot late at night and stare at them weird and then finally come up to them and tell them who they are, do it. Let them know that you know who they are. It's kind of cool. It's kind of fun. Right? Like, reach out. We're all here. We're all in this together. Okay? So, thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. I know that I got mom on y'all, but you need it. We have less than 2 weeks, you guys. Less than 2 weeks. Okay? We've got this. We're going to do very well. No matter what your goal is next month, you're going to rock it. Okay? Now's the time to start prepping yourself. We're going to do this. It's going to be amazing. I know exactly who would do that, actually. Rubina. I know exactly who would do that. An amazing human that I'm so glad that I know. That's who would do it. Exactly. All right, you guys, take care of yourself. Start setting up your plans now. It's 8 o'clock. Set that 15-minute timer and start setting up your plan for what you're going to do for the next 11 days to get ready for Nano. Okay? Have some fun. How's it going, you guys? I'm so excited that y'all were here. Like, seriously, thank you so much for joining. I very much appreciate your involvement. All right. I will see y'all very soon. I will be back on Wednesday for another live video. And then, of course, I'll have another regular YouTube video coming out on Friday. It's already edited. It's ready to go. And yes, everything is going to happen. All right. Bummer. My hair had a panic attack when you said nothing, do nothing. Yeah, exactly. Set a timer for 5 minutes and try to do nothing. I'm not even kidding. Like, seriously, start adding these things to your day because you need to start learning these little life things, because nano is going to be really rough if you're trying to toss too many things into your day. So seriously, like, start making a list and like literally put it on your little Post-it note, because if it fits on the Post-it, it gets done. So 5 minutes, nothing. Like, that's one of your things. And it's only 5 minutes, and you set a timer and you're good to go, right? Remember, utilize those timers. 15 minutes, you've got an entire scene card made. Okay, 15 minutes, whole scene card was done, right? So make sure that you've got your resources printed. This weekend at the workshop, we're going to be working on actually creating those codexes. And then next weekend, we're going to talk about extra writing resources to help bolster and help you through the nano process. Okay, love you guys so much. Thank you for joining today. I will see y'all in the next video. Have a great night. Bye, you guys.